I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts. But when I was 15, my mother remarried and moved us west toward the Berkshires. She'd always dreamed of living somewhere quieter, somewhere with clean air and fewer sirens, as she put it. So when she found an old 2-story colonial on River Road in Great Barrington, right near the Housatonic, she signed the papers without hesitation. I remember the first time we pulled into the gravel driveway. It was October, leaves everywhere, that damp New England cold that creeps through your clothes. But the house was beautiful in a worn-down sort of way. Faded white clapboards, a crooked brick chimney, and a sagging wraparound porch that looked like it hadn't held more than squirrels in 30 years. It wasn't until much later that I learned why the price had been so low. When we first moved in, nothing seemed off. The place was old, sure, but not creepy. The floors creaked, the walls groaned. Every window whistled like a tea kettle when the wind hit the river just right. Normal stuff for a house built in 1798. Something the antique brass plaque on the porch made a point of bragging about. My room was upstairs, at the end of a narrow hallway. To the left of my door was a linen closet that never opened smoothly. It always felt like it was pushing back, like there was pressure behind it. My mom joked it was swollen wood from humidity. But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate. The first strange thing happened 3 days after we moved in. I was getting ready for bed when I noticed the hall light was on. I'd turned it off. I remembered flipping the switch. But there it was, casting a yellow beam under my door. I opened it, expecting my mom or stepdad to be coming upstairs, but the hallway was empty. Still, I wasn't scared. Old house, bad wiring, whatever. But then it kept happening, night after night. I'd turn the switch off. 2 minutes later, the bulb would flicker on again. One night, frustrated, I unscrewed the bulb completely. I set it on the floor. When I closed my door, the hallway went dark. Good. 30 seconds later, light crept under the door again. I opened it slowly. The bulb was back in the socket. At this point, I started telling myself I was sleepwalking, forgetting things, misremembering. That's what you do when you're 15, living in a new town, trying not to seem crazy. But the house wasn't subtle for long. A week or two later, my mom asked if I kept leaving the kitchen cabinets open. I told her no. She said every morning when she came downstairs, the upper cabinets, the ones I could barely reach, were hanging wide open, like someone had yanked them all at once. My stepdad blamed mice. I blamed drafts. But one night I got thirsty around 2 a.m. and went downstairs for water. Every cabinet door, every single one, was open. Slowly, quietly, like mouths. I shut them all and went back upstairs. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, telling myself it was still just rodents or warped wood. Then came the knocking. Not on the front door, not on the walls, on my bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't say anything, didn't move. Minutes passed. Nothing else happened. The next morning, I asked my mom if she'd knocked. She hadn't. I didn't ask again. Things escalated fast after that. We'd been living there maybe 2 months when I woke around 4 a.m. to the sound of running water. I thought someone had left a faucet on, so I went to the bathroom. Dry. Checked the kitchen. Dry. Then I heard it again. Loud rushing water. It was coming from the basement. Now, if you've ever been in the basement of a 1700s colonial, you know it's not the kind of place you casually walk into at 4 in the morning. Ours had a dirt floor, stone walls, and a single dangling bulb that lit maybe a quarter of the room. But I could hear it. Water pouring, splashing, like a bath being overfilled. I went down halfway, just enough to see the bottom stairs. The drain in the center of the floor was flooding. Water was rising around it, bubbling up like something was pushing against it from underneath. Then, just for a second, I saw something move in it. A reflection, maybe. A shape. A pale face looking up at me from the water. Not fully formed, like it was smeared or blurred by the surface, but human. I screamed, ran upstairs, slammed the door, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The basement was bone dry the next morning. When I finally broke and told my mom what I'd seen, she went quiet, really quiet. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "You saw her too. Her, not it." She explained that on the day we moved in, an older woman from down the road had walked over and told her that someone had drowned on the property in the 1950s. A local girl named Ruth Cassidy, age 12. She had fallen into the river behind the house during spring melt. Her body wasn't recovered for 3 days. The older woman said Ruth was still around, but harmless. My mom brushed it off as small-town superstition. Except, nothing that followed felt harmless. The worst night, the night I still can't explain without getting nauseous, came in January. I had the flu, feverish, dehydrated. I remember waking in the middle of the night, completely freezing, even though my blanket was pulled up to my chin, except it wasn't. It was slowly being pulled down, not yanked, not ripped away, just sliding, like someone was gently, patiently removing it from my hands. I grabbed the blanket tight. It stopped. Then something pressed against my mattress, right beside my legs. A weight, a small weight, as if someone had climbed onto the bed. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My eyes watered from terror. Then I heard it. A voice, a girl's voice, right beside me, whispering through broken breath. Cold, so cold. I bolted upright, stumbled to the lamp, flicked it on, and spun around. Nothing. Nobody. But the blanket lay on the floor, and my mattress had the distinct imprint of small knees pressed into it. We didn't stay much longer. Not because of me, though. My stepdad was the one who insisted we leave after he started waking up with muddy footprints on the floor beside his side of the bed. Small footprints. Bare. The kind a child would make walking out of a riverbank. We moved back to Springfield by spring. The house on River Road didn't sell for months. When it finally did, my mom warned the new owners, told them what we experienced. They brushed her off with a polite smile. 6 months later, the house was listed again, even cheaper than before. The listing description didn't say why. It just said, seller relocating unexpectedly. Quick sale preferred. Even now, driving past Great Barrington on Route 7, I sometimes think about pulling off and heading back toward River Road, just to see if the house is still standing. But I never do, because part of me fears I'll see exactly what I saw that night in the basement. A pale face rising through dark water, waiting for someone else to lean close enough so she can finally come up. I'm not the type of person who scares easily. I grew up in Western Massachusetts, hiking the Berkshires year-round, even in winter storms that would send most people home. The woods were where I felt safest, familiar, quiet, alive. They were predictable. At least, that's what I believed until the fall of 2017, when I decided to hike the Hoosac Range Trail alone. The trailhead sits off Route 2, right between North Adams and Florida, Massachusetts. It's a popular spot. Well-marked, photogenic, perfect for foliage season. I'd done it twice before with friends, so going alone didn't bother me. But the second I stepped into the trees that day, something felt wrong. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just a heaviness in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. Even the usual forest sounds, chickadees, chipmunks, wind rushing through beech leaves, were strangely absent. But I shrugged it off. Early morning, cooler temperatures, whatever. That was my first mistake. About a mile in, there's a ridge where the trees open up just enough to see the valley. I stopped there for water and realized something unsettling. I hadn't passed a single person since the parking lot. On a peak foliage weekend, on one of the most popular trails in the region. I tried not to think too much about that. Kept walking. But as I continued, I noticed something else. The woods were too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears, makes your heartbeat feel obnoxiously loud. Then came the smell. At first, I thought it was a dead animal. Sharp, metallic, rotten. But it wasn't sporadic like an animal carcass. It lingered, followed, almost trailed behind me. That was when I started hearing footsteps. At first, they blended with my own. A soft crunch of leaves behind me, just barely out of sync. When I stopped, they stopped. When I turned, the trail behind me looked empty, calm, normal. But I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. I kept going. Maybe half a mile later, the trail split. One side a marked detour for erosion repair, the other the official route. I took the official one. The air immediately shifted. Colder, still, wrong. About 2 minutes down that path, I saw the first structure, a stone foundation. Old, probably 1800s. Crumbled chimney, collapsed cellar hole beneath tangled roots. I'd never seen it before, and I should have. It sat right beside the trail, unavoidable. Yet somehow, I'd never noticed it on previous hikes. I walked a little closer. The air grew icy. My breath started showing in thin white clouds, even though it was nearly 60 degrees. Then I saw something inside the foundation. A shape, small, pale, crouched behind the remnants of the chimney. At first, I thought it was a child. Pale hands, thin arms, long hair falling over its face. But the posture was wrong, twisted like its joints bent the wrong way. and it was completely still. I stepped back, heart thundering. The figure slowly raised its head. The hair slid off its face. Where the face should have been, there was nothing. Just pale skin, smooth, blank, unbroken. I stumbled backward, tripping over a root. My instincts screamed to run, but when I looked again, the thing was gone. The foundation was empty. The woods were silent, and the smell, that metallic rot, grew stronger. I didn't care about the summit anymore. I turned around and headed back the way I came. Except, the trail wasn't the same. The markers were spaced farther apart. The trees were denser. The air felt heavier. And the quiet wasn't just silence anymore. It was suffocating, like the forest itself was listening. That's when I heard it. A voice. Not in front of me, not behind me, right beside my ear. A whisper. Stay. I froze, completely. I couldn't even blink. Every instinct in my body screamed not to look to my left, not to acknowledge whatever had leaned close enough to speak into my ear. Then it whispered again, "Stay with us." That broke whatever paralysis I was in. I ran. I didn't care if I sprained an ankle or missed the trail. I just sprinted, branches whipping my face, breath tearing at my lungs. The forest blurred past me in streaks of red and gold, and the footsteps were behind me. Not one set, several, fast, light, wrong, like multiple things were chasing me, matching my pace, matching my turns, closing in. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My vision tunneled. My legs burned. When I finally saw the clearing near the trailhead, I almost cried. I burst out of the woods, stumbled into the gravel parking lot, and froze again. My car was there, but the lot was empty. Every car that had been there that morning, gone. And the woods behind me had gone silent again, completely. I felt watched, not from one place, from everywhere, as if dozens of eyes were peering from between the trees, just out of view. Then, from deep in the woods, I heard them. 3 slow knocks, like knuckles on wood, except they echoed, not from a tree, from the ground, as if something underground was knocking upward. I didn't wait to understand it. I slammed into my car, started the engine, and tore down Route 2 without looking back. For weeks afterward, I had nightmares of that faceless thing crouched behind the stone foundation, of running through those endless trees, of the whisper at my ear telling me to stay. And sometimes, even now, I still hear 3 knocks, faintly, when I'm trying to fall asleep. I later learned that the stone foundations scattered across the Hoosac Range aren't random. Some of them belonged to logging camps. Others to families who tried settling the ridges in the 1800s, only to abandon them mysteriously. The locals say the woods up there aren't empty. They say there are things that mimic hikers to lure people off trail. Things that crouch behind old stone walls. Things that whisper. And if you hear 3 knocks deep in the Hoosac Range, it means they've chosen you. I took my first solo road trip the summer I turned 22. The kind where you pack your car with energy drinks, crappy snacks, and a playlist long enough to carry you across 3 states. My plan was simple: leave California, hit Arizona by sundown, and drive a stretch of historic Route 66 just for the nostalgia of it. I had no idea that part of the highway had teeth. I crossed into Arizona late. Later than I should have. The sun had already dipped below the red mesas, leaving the desert in this eerie, purplish twilight. Route 66 isn't like the movies, by the way. Large parts are empty. No gas stations, no towns. Just miles of broken asphalt and silence. Around 10 p.m., my low fuel light came on. I cursed under my breath. I'd passed a sign 40 minutes earlier that said Gallup, 72 miles, and that was the closest town in either direction. My car wasn't gonna make 70 miles. I slowed down, scanning the horizon for any sign of life. A gas station, a diner, a glowing billboard, anything. That's when I saw it. A neon sign flickering in the distance, half buried in darkness. The Sunset Motel vacancy. It didn't look modern. More like 1950s roadside Americana. Peeling paint, metal tubing, that bright red neon that buzzes like a dying fly zapper. But it was the only thing for miles, so I pulled in. The parking lot was empty. The office lights were off, but the vacancy sign still glowed a soft, sickly red. I got out and walked toward the front door. A bell jingled when I pushed it open. Inside, the lobby was perfectly preserved. Plastic-wrapped chairs, a rotary phone, wallpaper stained yellow from time, a bowl of mints that looked fossilized. Behind the counter stood a man in a white button-up shirt, as if he had just been waiting for me. "You lost?" he asked. His voice was low, flat, like he was reciting lines. I explained the fuel situation, asked if there was a gas station nearby. He simply shook his head. "Nothing open at this hour. Best stay the night." Before I could respond, he slid a brass key across the counter. A real one, not a card. Room 9. The metal tag on the key was scratched to hell, but I could still make out the number. Beneath the scratches was something else too. Deep gouges, like someone had tried to remove the number entirely. "I didn't give you my name," I said, realizing he'd already written me into the guest book. He didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He just pointed toward the dark row of rooms outside. I should have walked out right then. Room 9 smelled like old cigarettes and damp carpet. The bedspread was avocado green. The TV was one of those bulky wood-paneled ones with 2 knobs. The air conditioner rattled like there was something alive inside it. But I was exhausted. I locked the door, dropped my bag, and collapsed onto the bed. For a while, everything was quiet. Then, I heard footsteps. Not outside the room, beneath it. Slow, dragging steps. Back and forth, back and forth. I froze, eyes open in the dark. The steps stopped below my bed. Then came a whisper, "Are you awake?" My body went rigid. Another whisper followed, from the closet this time, "Please let me out." Then tapping at the window. Then something scraping inside the bathroom walls. All at once, noises came from every direction of the room. Tapping, scratching, breathing. I scrambled for the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked, it was jammed, like something was holding it shut from. Room 9 smelled like old cigarettes and damp carpet. The bedspread was avocado green. The TV was one of those bulky, wood-paneled ones with 2 knobs. The air conditioner rattled like there was something alive inside it, but I was exhausted. I locked the door, dropped my bag, and collapsed onto the bed. For a while, everything was quiet. Then I heard footsteps, not outside the room, beneath it. Slow, dragging steps. Back and forth, back and forth. I froze, eyes open in the dark. The steps stopped below my bed. Then came a whisper, "Are you awake?" My body went rigid. Another whisper followed, from the closet this time, "Please let me out." Then tapping at the window. Then something scraping inside the bathroom walls. All at once, noises came from every direction of the room. Tapping, scratching, breathing. I scrambled for the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked, it was jammed, like something was holding it shut from the other side. Then, from behind me, the TV flicked on by itself. Static, loud, violent. But beneath the static, the screen showed something. Faint outlines, shapes moving through fog. 4 figures, standing in a row, facing the camera. Their heads jerked upward in unison. Their faces were blurred, but I could make out wide, stretched smiles. Then the screen went black. My room went silent, and the doorknob turned by itself, unlocking very slowly. I bolted outside and sprinted straight to the motel office. The bell jingled as I flew through the door. Empty. The man was gone. The guest book was gone. The bowl of ancient mints, gone. The entire counter was bare, except for the brass key I was still holding, and a Polaroid picture lying beneath it. My stomach dropped when I recognized the image. Room 9. The same bed, the same curtains, but in the photo, 3 figures stood around the bed. And the 4th figure? It was lying in the bed, my bed. The face was smudged, like the photo had been scratched. But the outline? It looked like me. My breathing spiraled. I dropped the photo and ran for my car. But when I stepped outside, the motel was gone. Not old, not abandoned, gone. The neon sign was nothing but a rusted metal frame. The rooms were collapsed rubble. The office was a crumbling concrete slab, as if it had burned down decades ago. Except room 9's doorframe was still standing, and the brass number 9 was lying in the dirt at my feet. When I finally made it to Gallup the next morning, I told a gas station attendant what I'd seen. He paused, face going pale. "The Sunset Motel?" he asked. "You sure about that name?" I nodded. He swallowed hard. "That place burned down in 1972. Gas leak. Everyone inside died. You must have seen the remains. People claim it's haunted, but..." He shook his head. "No one's seen lights there in years." I didn't argue. I just filled my tank and kept driving, because when I checked my passenger seat, the brass key to room 9 was sitting there, and the metal tag wasn't scratched anymore. It had one word carved into it now: stay. I first heard about Jerome, Arizona, from my friend Avery, who was obsessed with ghost towns. I'd seen images online: old brick buildings leaning into a mountain slope, rusty mining equipment half swallowed by dust. But I never really thought about going there myself. I'm not usually the type who chases haunted places. But in early 2022, Avery convinced me to join her on a weekend trip. "Jerome isn't like other towns," she said. "It's alive." I laughed it off. After what happened, I don't laugh anymore. We arrived on a cool January afternoon, winding up the steep roads carved into Cleopatra Hill. The entire landscape felt precarious, as if the town was barely clinging to rock that didn't want it there. Jerome used to be one of the biggest copper mining towns in the country. Then the mines dried up, the town emptied, and decades later, it transformed itself into an arts and ghost tour destination. That's the part tourists know. There's another part no one advertises. The moment I stepped out of the car, I noticed something unusual. Every window facing the street had curtains drawn, and behind every curtain, I saw the same thing, just a sliver of a face, not fully visible. Just the corner of an eye, watching. I tried to shake it off. Old towns have curious locals, right? Except when Avery went inside the Jerome Grand Hotel to check us in. I stayed by the car, and the watching didn't stop. A window in the hotel, a window across the street, 2 more at the old Connor Hotel down the block. Every one of them had someone looking out, barely visible, just enough to know you were being studied. And when Avery came back, she said the clerk didn't even greet her. He just slid the key across the counter and whispered, "You're staying one night, correct?" She hadn't told him that. The Jerome Grand Hotel used to be the United Verde Hospital. Hundreds died there. That much is true. Most towns move on from tragedies. Jerome somehow absorbed them. Our room was on the 2nd floor. The hallway smelled like dust and something metallic. Old blood, maybe. The elevator, an antique cage-style lift, clicked and groaned with every movement. It made me uneasy. That night, around 11 p.m., the town streets went silent. Not small town quiet. Not sleepy village quiet. I mean, silent. No cars. No people walking. No wind against the windows. Just nothing. Avery thought it was peaceful. I thought it was suffocating. At midnight, we decided to take a walk down Hull Avenue, the street that runs beneath the hotel past the Spirit Room bar. Except when we stepped outside, every curtain on the street snapped shut at the same moment. Every single one. Hundreds of windows closing in perfect synchrony, like the entire town was holding its breath. I stopped walking. Avery grabbed my arm. "You saw that, right?" Before I could answer, a soft sound drifted down from above us. A whisper. No, many whispers. Layered voices, echoing through the alleys and staircases of Jerome's maze-like streets. At first, they blended into nothingness. Then I realized they were repeating a single sentence, over and over. "Don't look up the hill." Avery squeezed my arm tighter. "Don't look at what?" But she was already turning. So was I. We couldn't help it. The hill above us was lined with old buildings, the remains of houses once owned by miners. Only a handful still stood. Most were shells, crumbling into the rock. But one house stood out. A narrow, 3-story structure with boarded windows and a collapsing porch. Except the boards weren't fully covering the windows. There were gaps. And through those gaps, eyes, hundreds of them, looking down at us. No faces, no bodies, just eyes. Dozens in each window, stacked and crowded and pressed so close together, a glass warped from the pressure. Every hair on my body stood up. Then the whispers changed. They were no longer telling us what not to look at. They were repeating something else. "Don't let them see you move." My chest tightened. I whispered, "Avery, don't run." She nodded, trembling. We walk, slow. We stepped backward, carefully, keeping our eyes forward, and the eyes in the windows followed us, turning in unison. We kept walking. The eyes kept watching. The street felt endless. Finally, blessedly, we reached the hotel door. Avery pushed it open. The moment we stepped inside, every whisper stopped. The silence was absolute. We locked ourselves in the room without speaking. I pushed a chair against the door and sat on the bed, trying to steady my breathing. At 3:11 a.m., the fire alarm in the hallway went off. But it wasn't a normal alarm. It wasn't beeping. It was ringing, like a phone stuck on an endless dial tone. Avery opened her mouth to ask what was happening, but the moment she stepped toward the door, someone knocked. Lightly, 3 taps. We froze. Another 3 taps. Then the sound of the doorknob turning slowly, as if someone on the other side was politely testing if we'd forgotten to lock it. I whispered, "Don't open it." Avery whispered, "It won't matter." Because the knob kept turning. Not fast, not violent, gentle, patient. Like whoever was there knew we weren't going anywhere. Then the fire alarm stopped, and everything went silent again. Not quiet, silent, like before. But this time, the silence felt closer, like it was coming from the hallway itself. We didn't sleep. We sat there until the sun rose over the Verde Valley. When we finally dared to open the hotel door, something was lying on the hallway carpet. A photograph, black and white, old, creased at the edges. It showed the outside of the Jerome Grand Hotel, back when it was still the hospital. In the picture, a group of men stood outside the entrance. Doctors, nurses, orderlies. And behind them, in the windows of the building, were eyes. Hundreds of eyes. Watching. The same eyes we'd seen the night before. Except this photo was dated 1939. We checked out without speaking a word. The desk clerk didn't look at us, just slid the receipt across the counter. When Avery and I reached the car, she finally whispered, "Did they follow us?" I didn't know how to answer, so I started the engine. We drove down the mountain road with the sun at our backs. I told myself we escaped, but halfway down the hill, I glanced in the rearview mirror, and in the second-floor window of the hotel, our window, the curtain moved, and behind it, just barely visible, a sliver of a face, watching, still watching. I've lived in California most of my life, but I didn't visit Lake Tahoe until my late 20s. People always described it like a postcard. Sapphire water, pine-covered mountains, clean air. But nobody ever talks about what it feels like when the sun goes down, how the lake becomes a black mirror where things can hide beneath the surface. In July 2021, my friend Nate invited me to join him for a weekend at a small rental cabin near Rubicon Bay on the west side of Tahoe. He'd been going to that spot since he was a kid, so he knew all the local lore, but he never mentioned the one story that mattered. We arrived Friday evening. The sun was still glowing off the water, and families were out paddleboarding, taking photos, all that wholesome stuff. The lake looked harmless. Around 9 p.m., Nate suggested we head down to the shore, said the water would be warm enough for a night swim. I almost said no. Something about the lake at night felt wrong. Maybe the silence. Maybe the way moonlight just barely grazed its surface, leaving most of it hidden. But I didn't want to be the paranoid one. So we went. We waded in, up to our waists. The water colder than I expected. Tahoe stays icy, even in July. I was already shivering when Nate dove under. The second he disappeared, the water around me trembled. A ripple, then another one, and another. I called his name. Silence. 30 seconds. 50. A minute. Just when panic started clawing up my throat, he burst back through the surface, laughing. "You should have seen your face, man." I punched his shoulder and told him to stop being an idiot. He offered to show me what he saw, something he claimed was weird but super cool. It was already too dark to see the bottom, but Nate swore that in this particular spot, the lake bed dropped fast, almost straight down. "You shine a light," he said, "and the water swallows it." He wasn't exaggerating. We didn't have a flashlight, so he pulled out his phone, switched on the LED, and held it over the water. And the light didn't fade slowly. It vanished, like something swallowed it whole. I stepped back toward the shore. Let's be done for tonight. Seriously. But Nate was staring into the water, frozen, unblinking. "Did you see that?" he whispered. I hadn't, until I did. A shape moved beneath us. Huge, slow, maybe 20 feet down. Not a fish, not a log, not anything with a natural silhouette. the thing drifted under the surface, pale, long, almost serpent-like, then curled back upward, and for one horrifying second, it seemed to be rising toward us. Nate dropped his phone. It sank instantly into blackness. I didn't even think. I grabbed his arm and dragged him to shore. We didn't speak on the walk back to the cabin. The next morning, Nate acted like nothing happened. He brushed it off as shadows, reflections, underwater debris, except he didn't want to swim again, not even during the day. We rented kayaks instead and paddled along the shoreline near D.L. Bliss State Park, heading toward the famous blue water near Emerald Bay. It was supposed to be relaxing, but about a mile from shore, Nate froze. Then I saw why. His phone, the one he dropped into the lake, was sitting inside his kayak, dry, perfectly intact, placed neatly between his feet, and the screen was cracked. From the inside, he looked at me, face pale. "I locked this last night. How?" Before he could finish, the phone vibrated. One notification, one photograph, sent to him from an unknown number. He opened it. It was a picture of us, taken from the water, from behind, far, far from shore. "Dude," I whispered, "is someone messing with us?" But I already knew the answer, because the water around our kayaks began to move, not from waves, but from something pushing upward. Nate started paddling frantically back toward the shore. I followed, but the lake wouldn't let us go easily. Shapes moved beneath us, more than one, shifting shadows that spiraled around our kayaks like enormous underwater rings. And then I heard it, a sound rising from below, a hollow, echoing pulse, like something knocking on metal from the bottom of the lake. Boom, boom, boom. Each impact shook the kayak beneath me. We made it back to land, but Nate was different after that. Quiet, distracted, like something had followed him home in his head. That night, he barely spoke. We stayed inside, locked all the doors, turned on every light. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to a soft, dripping sound. Water, pooling in the hallway. I followed the trail to Nate's bedroom. The floor was soaked. Lake water, icy cold, and his window was wide open. I rushed to the window and looked out. The shore was barely visible in the moonlight, but I saw him, Nate, standing knee-deep in the lake, staring straight down into the water. I ran. When I reached the beach, he was already chest-deep. "Nate!" I screamed. He didn't turn. He didn't move. I grabbed him and pulled, but it felt like something beneath the surface had hold of him. Something strong, pulling downward. For a moment, it felt like I was wrestling the entire lake. Then his body went limp, and I managed to drag him onto shore. He wasn't breathing. I performed CPR until he coughed up water. But what came out wasn't lake water. It was black, thick, oily, sludge from the deepest parts of Tahoe, where sunlight hasn't touched in thousands of years. His first words after he woke were not his own. In a voice too calm, "It knows you too." We left Tahoe the next morning, or tried to. As we drove past Emerald Bay, Nate's phone vibrated again. A new message, Another photograph. This one was taken from deep underwater, looking up through blackness, at two figures standing on the shore the night before. Me and Nate, staring down into the water. The caption beneath the photo was just one word: soon. Nate hasn't been the same since. And sometimes, late at night, I dream about Tahoe. Not the blue surface, not the postcard version. I dream of the depths, where something pale and massive moves slowly through the darkness, rising a little closer each time, waiting for the next person foolish enough to look down into its home.